Good afternoon, my name is Kerry Duval. I am the Warrior Queen. This afternoon, I'm joined by Chris Cortopassi. Welcome to Warrior TV again.
Thank you very much. Nice to be back.
So obviously before we get started, we'll do some quick fire questions. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes.
Brilliant. Cats or dogs?
Dogs, although cats are fine.
And that's not just because I told you to say that. Yeah. Favourite colour?
Blue.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
I like tea as well. Yeah. So what have you been up to since you were last on with questioning me and Adam?
Oh, we've been up to a lot. We've been looking around at we've been changing our business. So previously we were all about sort of mental health, specifically for men, which obviously is really, really important because mental health is important for everyone. But for men, getting access to the conversation is still quite a big challenge. What we found was that that's a really hard sell. Actually, there's actually a lot of amazing groups out there. Organizations like the Mental Health Warriors, and then there's Andy's Mind Club, and there's the Mind Cave. There's a lot of different organizations and awareness-raising groups that already offer a really nice sort of male-focused support. So the work that we do is more about performance improvement and performance coaching and that kind of stuff in the business world. So we've decided to sort of shift with that focus in mind, but still with mental well-being being kind of a key central point of it. So, very much in line with what we were trying to do before, but that's where you get through to companies and a much wider audience. And that's a bit of an easier sell because, actually any kind of performance improvement that you want to undertake, whether or not it's in your personal life or whether or not it's maybe for your team at work or for you and your partner in your relationship or anything like that, actually the side effect is always going to be improved well-being of some sort. Because if you're working more effectively at work, people are less stressed. If you're communicating better in your relationship, you have less clashes, which I'm sure you guys will understand as I do with my partner.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we've been focusing on. So it's a lot of rebranding, a lot of investment, a lot of spending money. So that's been good fun, but a little bit scary. Outside of that, we've been taking the dog for lots of walks, going to visit the family. Went for a wedding in the real world a few weekends ago, which was really nice. It was a bit strange being in a room with lots of people together, but very, very good fun and nice to get in and have a good party and have a good drink again. So
yeah. So how have you found going from lockdown back into the real world, as you call it?
Yeah, fine. It's an interesting world out there now. I think. So actually, when I just finished a contract when I was actually out in the real world in a plant coaching employees. So, and that was up in Scotland. So I was on trains, planes, buses. I was in offices and rooms with people. I was standing next to them at their workstations, talking to them and coaching them. So, I was relatively comfortable with it, but there's a lot of anxiety out there, and a lot of people, still quite afraid. Back then masks and stuff were mandatory, and for the most part people just got on with it, which is fine, but you could really see people making that effort and kind of shucking away from each other and being a little bit kind of sensitive.
Yeah.
And I must admit there were a few times, I remember I got on a plane to fly up one week and they had us all sitting right next to each other in the plane, which they're allowed to do. But there was loads of empty rows behind us. And I was a bit like, I think I will move, actually. Apart from anything else, I want the extra leg room. But I've enjoyed it. It's been really nice. It's been nice to see people again. I'm a big fan of people watching.
Yeah.
So it's been nice to actually be out and about in restaurants and in bars and sort of going to events and things, do a lot of networking for business. So we started to do that out in the real world again now as well. And it's just a very different energy and different dynamic with people, isn't it? Rather than sitting on multiple Zoom calls all the time and things like that.
So started on Zoom.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was definitely getting Zoom fatigue working online for God, it was over a year working on year and a half working online.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely hate Zoom. Having to ring school up every day. The stupid password isn't working again. I hate this Zoom. You know, 5 different Zoom sessions a day, 5 different passwords. Why can't you just use the same pissing password?
And that's it. And for the kids as well, you know, if they've got lots of different sources of education and stuff during lockdown, you know, like you say, you're in and out of classes all day and things. And, you know, I did a few workshops online, but they don't have the same impact. So it's nice. It is nice to get back out into the real world again and long continue, you know.
Yeah, I can agree. Being back in the schoolyard yesterday for the first school run of the year, it was nice to see the schoolyard full. Everybody running, all the kids running around playing together, and parents talking to each other. No masks, apart from one. There was one person with a mask on, you know, and she stuck out like a sore thumb because the whole yard no masks. So,
I think it's still a personal choice at the moment, isn't it? So
yeah, it is.
There's a lot of people wearing them when I was in this meeting today earlier on, and but then we were in a restaurant Thursday, and that was very much business as usual. You know, nobody was wearing a mask, even the staff, and a lot of people do. But you know, I think unless it's something that really, you know, I know there are some people that it does cause quite a lot of anxiety for having to cover their face and things like that, and whatever sort of reasons they might have for it. But you know, otherwise, it's if I was in a hospital sort of thing and had to wear a mask because of the requirements in a hospital, like for a procedure or something, I wouldn't really think twice about it. So it's not something I tend to let myself get worked up about. But that's not the same for everyone. So we just need to be a bit understanding, I guess.
Yeah. So obviously in your bio, you mentioned that you've been coaching and mentoring professionals for over 10 years. How did you get into doing that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one actually, because I've done a little bit of it through my corporate career. So I was in the energy industry for sort of 15, 16 years, probably longer. And I'd done a little bit of coaching initially, but it was actually after I'd been off work for a while with coincidentally enough with mental health issues. Now I've been off work for about 6 months or so and came back in on a phased return. And rather than go back to the work that I was doing, at the time they were training up some employees in the business to be coaches. And, you know, I was having a conversation with them about what I wanted to do. And one of the managers said, actually, you'd probably quite enjoy this kind of work. It's basically training people and talking to people and coaching them and facilitating. And at the time I was kind of open to anything really, you know, because I was still a bit raw and a bit uncertain. So I kind of fell into it that way and just kind of took to it like that, to be honest with you. So it was quite an interesting time of life for me when I actually then sort of started in the coaching. And now, you know, it's amazing 10 years later to be actually using that to support other people's mental well-being, you know, given where I started from. Yeah.
So would you say coaching's been really beneficial to not only yourself, but to your life?
Yeah, 100%. You know, coaching is essentially, you'll know because you did your certifications, I think, didn't you? And you know, it's basically just listening with a keen ear and asking the right questions. But actually, you know, they do have structure to them. You know, it takes you through sort of a certain, and actually, if you apply that kind of methodology and that discipline to the challenges you're having in life, which is what I do with my private clients, you know, it's a really, really strong approach and structured way of sort of trying to manage things, which I prefer actually to just sort of traditional sort of talking therapies maybe and things like that. I mean, I like those and I do those myself as well. You know, I enjoy having counselling when I'm struggling with something, because I think that emotional exploration is quite helpful. But when you get something that's a bit more practical or a bit more something you can get your hands on and actually working through a process, then whether it's a coaching process or a problem solving process, can be really, really powerful. So yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah,
obviously I can connect with that because obviously, yeah, I've been doing my own coaching certifications and I'm getting really into it. I'm not quite at Adam's level yet, but I'm almost there.
Well, it's not a competition. Well, no, maybe. Yeah.
Adam thinks it's a competition.
Right.
But if you can't have banter in your relationship, what can you have? Speaking of Adam, we've got a question of him.
Okay.
To Chris, for you. On mindset, you recently visited Scotland. What mindset did you have when you first arrived there?
Yeah, see, there you go. Great question. What mindset did I first have?
Got him thinking now, Adam.
That's it. Yeah, no, that's a good one. Well done. What mindset did I have? I think, well, you know, starting any new job, which is essentially what it is when you're a contractor, you're starting a new gig. You've always got a kind of sort of focused mindset of how you want to start and how you want to show up. I think the difference with it being Scotland was, for me personally, in England, my character and my accent sort of stands out. You know, it plays quite well. Whereas back in Scotland, obviously, it's not really a factor. And in fact, my sort of accent and the way I speak, particularly for Glasgow, which is where I was working, is quite broad, especially after being down in England for 15 years or so. So I think my mindset might have also been a bit distracted by, I need to Scottish it up a bit now that I'm back home, so that I kind of fit in a bit more and I can communicate a bit more effectively. So yeah, but otherwise, you know, the mindset is very much about, okay, you know, what's the landscape here? What am I here to achieve? How do I want to show up? Sort of to make the best, you know, initial first impact. But also it was really nice because the first thing I did when I landed in Scotland was my brother came and picked me up from the airport, and we went out to my mum and dad's house. Excuse me, and they didn't know I was coming up to work, so I surprised them. So that was lovely. So I was kind of a bit of a cheeky mindset as well, because I was looking forward to giving them a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. So was that after lockdown then?
Yeah. So that was when were we, sort of June, July, August time. Yeah, that'd be about right. Yeah. And it was nice because actually it was, you know, talk about well-being and things like that. It was the brightest, hottest, sunniest summer that Scotland's had, I think, for an awful long time. So when I flew up, it was almost like going on holiday every week, because, you know, even if the weather down here wasn't that great, it was bright, beaming sunshine and very hot and warm in Glasgow of all places. It was very confusing.
Yeah. We've got a friend that lives in Inverness in Scotland. We need to get up to go and visit him. We do. So going back to the coaching, obviously it's not just people you coach, it's businesses you coach. Yeah? So is there any businesses that we will have heard of?
Well, yeah, there'll be quite a few. There's a few I can't mention because when you're doing this kind of coaching and contracting, a lot of them don't like to. But like the energy industry, so National Grid, which is where I started, I did a little of coaching with the teams in there as well. After that, there was again in the energy industry, a company called ExoServe, which is a separate company that sits in between them as well. Banks, I can't mention any names, but the biggest bank in the world was one of the banks that I worked with, and a contract with delivery company recently. So yeah, quite a number of different ones as well, and then local ones that maybe aren't so common, but they'll be like distribution companies and things like that. There's one up in Shrewsbury, which is called Pipe Kit, and they literally anything to do with pipes, any kind of pipe at all, plastic pipe, any kind of widget or ton or anything like that you can think of, they buy them and distribute them out to whoever needs them, really.
Would you be up for coming to the Mental Health Warriors and doing some coaching with us?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, happy to do coaching with anyone anytime. I think it's great fun working with a guy Tuesday there who's a private coach, so not businesses, but and he's a guy I used to work with actually in the energy industry years ago, and you know, especially a lot of the tools and techniques and things that I use, he's very aware of them. So sometimes especially when you're working with people that like yourselves who understand the mechanics of things,
yeah,
it can actually be it can be a bit of a trap, because sometimes you'll be like, oh, I know what you're doing, you're coaching me, but otherwise it can be quite satisfying because people kind of know the score, and so they know how to work with it. Whereas sometimes you go to a business and say you're given a team or a business area, and sometimes they're not given a lot of notice. Sometimes they're not really given much heads up as to what's going on, and they're kind of shoved into it, which isn't ideal. So oftentimes you're trying to overcome the initial pushback and some of the initial blockers. You know, it's like, you know, I always say to people when their partner comes to me and says, "Oh, you could really do with talking to my boyfriend and my husband, etc." I say, "Well, that's fine. I understand that you recognize there's something there that can be worked on, but an individual has to want to be coached, right? They have to want and be prepared to sort of approach it with humility, recognize something could change, and be willing to make that change." And you'll often see that kind of resistance and those blockers in businesses and things like that if they've not been properly prepared. And ironically, it causes more stress and anxiety because people are like, "Oh, we need to do this now, and we've got all this other work going on," and it's not an ideal environment to get started in. In fact, there was a charity here in Warwick, and I went in to do some volunteering with them, to do some public speaking for them and be a bit of an advocate. And while I was in there, I was sort of looking at their operation, and I was saying, "Oh, actually, you know, we could look at improving this bit, and we could look at it." And they were like, "Oh, no, we like doing things the way we do them, and just leave it alone." I was like, "Fair enough."
Yeah, obviously that's the same with mental health coaching. You'll get some people that say this person could really, really do with some help, but unless the actual person wants to help, it's pointless wasting your time. I mean, it sounds really nasty, but if we approach somebody and say, "Look, we're here to help," that's about it. All we can say, you know, we're here to help. If you want a chat, please reach out. If you need us, we're here.
Yeah.
But then they've got to want to come, and as much as you want to, you know, you need the help, you need to talk to me, you can't do it. You know, I mean, I had a few problems with a cousin over the last few weeks. He's sank really low with his mental health. And as much as I want to say you need to speak to somebody now to get the help, and I wanted to scream at him to say, "Come and talk to me," I couldn't. You know, I had to tell myself, you know, he's got to want the help. And until he wants the help, the only thing I can do is send him a message to say, "You've got a cousin that's got a mental health coaching certificate. Please come and talk to me if you want to."
Or anyone, you know.
That's about it.
Exactly. I was doing a few. I mean, you're right. It's one of the few differences actually between treating the approach to physical health and mental health, actually, because I often talk about we should really treat them the same in the way that we talk about them and the way we sort of treat them. And you guys, your sort of mission is to remove the stigma, isn't it, around mental health? And we don't have that in the same way around physical health. You know, if I break my arm, people will be like, "Oh, you've got a broken arm. Is it okay? Is it sore?" You know, if I say I've got depression, people are like, "Oh, well," you know, or even just I'm feeling a bit low today. Yeah, even if I'm just a bit of a low mood today, most people will be like, "Oh, okay, well, fair enough." So we're not there yet in terms of treating them the same way. But one of the key differences is actually with physical health, we do have the opportunity to take people by the hand and take them to a GP and say, "Right, he needs medication," or take them to the hospital and say, "Right, that arm's broken, it needs fixing." And you know, best will in the world, you can't. Well, you probably could drag someone to a counselling session, but you know, the key thing about coaching, counselling, anything to do with mental health, in terms of using a coactive approach between people, is that you do need to be talking about it in some respect. You know, meditation and medication and sort of all those kind of other holistic approaches are fine, but if you're trying to get to the root of a problem and really sort things out, then you've got to be able to talk and willing to.
Yeah, well, he put a few statuses. No, going back to my cousin, he put a few statuses on Facebook, and you could see the stigma is still there because people were telling him to grow up and to take the status off Facebook, to think about his kids. Yeah, fair enough. It's okay telling somebody that he's suicidal. You know, do you really want to do this? Your children are going to be without their mother or father. You know, you can say that, but then when they're in that moment, they're not going to think about anything else other than ending their life. And telling them to grow up isn't going to work. If anything, it's going to make things worse. So, you know, and I was so tempted to say something, but I thought I better not, because I don't want to start an argument, especially when it's people within the family. I don't want to start a big rift in the family. Can't be bothered with the drama that all that would cause. Don't want any drama.
Yeah,
so I had to just back off, and you know.
And I think that's right. I think you're right. I don't think social media is really the place for it. You know, it's all too easy for people to sort of post. Yeah, it's all too easy for people to shut it down and reject the situation or have a go. And in fact, you know, you risk exposing yourself to a broader audience of people who don't really have a vested interest in your well-being and won't care that much, and actually trolls and all that kind of negative stuff as well. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day. If I had a magic wand, or if I had the power of Zeus, one of the things I would do in the world is turn off public commenting on social media altogether. Completely turn it off. Because actually there's no value to it. If you want to comment on someone's picture, then send them a message, and that should be the avenue. And actually then it's only people that you're connected with and you know and you want to hear from that would contact you, and that would just remove all this other sort of, you know, public exposure to people and things like that. That feels like an idea to me. But yeah, so again, if you put it on social media, you're really just you know, whether it's a cry for help or not, and it is, you know, if you're struggling, that's one way to do it, but you're opening yourself up to quite a risky environment. It's quite toxic on there. And people will accuse you of just being attention seeking, and they will accuse you of things like that. And it's not, whether or not it's true, it doesn't really matter. It's just not valuable, like you say. You don't need all that extra stress and things like that. If you put it in the right group, sometimes if you put it in the mental health warriors group, for example, on Facebook, something like that, then what you more likely get is compassion and understanding and kind of what's the word? You know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, speaking of the mental health warriors, we do have a private group. We're currently building it up so that if people feel like they want to put a status asking for help, because they don't know who to contact, feel free to put a post in there, because then one of the warriors can either comment and say message me or message you directly, and obviously you will get the right help. I mean, if you're looking for a new self-care technique, put a message in there, say my self-care technique that I'm working on at the minute isn't working anymore, I want another one to help me. And people will comment, all right, okay, try this way, try that way, and they can help each other out like that. And that's a safe environment for anything to do with mental health. So anybody out there who likes the mental health warriors, we do have a mental health warriors private group. You know, sorry I've used your video to do that, Chris. But
no, that's important. No, these are your videos, mate, and I think that's absolutely ideal. This is a great opportunity to share that with people and let them know. You know, that it's a crazy time in the world, in the evolution of the human race, where actually, you know, we've all got access to a huge amount of information and a huge number of resources, and you know, things like this, and just adding more to it, I think, is great. There's no limit in my mind, especially when it comes to positive messages, how many times we can share, even if it's the same message, you know, and share opportunities for people to kind of reach out for the right kind of support. You know, that's the key thing, rather than just, you know, punching something onto your personal timeline.
Yeah.
Or your Instagram or TikTok or whatever. It's not going to get you anywhere. But if you actually go to something like this that is set up for that exact kind of thing, then that's a better start in my mind. Yeah. So no, I think it's a fair shout. Plug it away, Kerry.
Yeah. Well, the mental health warriors currently is reaching 3,500 people every month. We're building.
That's on YouTube, is it? On the thingy?
No, that's just Facebook.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
So we've gone from reaching just a couple hundred every month to 3,500 a month. We're building.
I love it. That's fantastic.
And obviously, because we've got warriors based in the UK and Australia, we're global.
You're global, baby.
Yeah. Obviously, we've opened ourselves up to a lot more trolls, but luckily, we've not come across any yet.
Good, and I think that's the important thing. I think it's getting the right audience, isn't it? And people that are passionate about mental health. I was talking about this in a video the other day, actually. You know, generally speaking, you know, I know you guys are the same as me. Like, people that are sort of passionate about a particular subject, you know, it's usually because they've had some sort of experience with it in the past. Like, people that are very, very passionate about cancer research have probably had it, or had some loss of mental well-being, have probably had some sort of challenges and things like that. And so when you've got a really key message like that, like this, you reach the right kind of people for the most part. And, it's, I also think it's all too easy in the modern world for, trolls and people like that who speak out against the wrong things to find themselves in the line of fire very, very quickly and being publicly shamed. Which, I don't think that's ideal, but I think it's the nature of the modern world. And sometimes it is a bit gratifying to see some of these people getting taken down, to be honest with you. It's like we had the situation with the footballers the other day, and it's like, we're talking about people's well-being here, so nobody should really be under attack in the modern world in that kind of way, especially with some of the other challenges we've got going on. But here we still are. We're still evolving.
Yeah. Well, speaking of mental health and well-being, I'm going to take the opportunity. How have you been through all the pandemic and now into this?
Thank you very much for asking. Yeah, I've struggled as much as anyone else. I didn't struggle with the coronavirus pandemic itself. I kind of, what would I say? I've been very fortunate in my life to travel. Not when I was a kid. I didn't do it like, it wasn't all full moon parties and day glow, makeup and whoop, whoop. But I traveled as an older man, my sort of 30s up till now, and not kind of executive style travel either. I spent a lot of times on wood floors and things like that in sort of Southeast Asia and India and places like that. And when you go to all these places, you have to get all the, all the various different injections to cover you, hopefully, maybe, just like this latest one. And it's all just hopefully, maybe. You don't know. It might work, it might not. So I've always kind of had a bit of an attitude to that kind of stuff of, in the same way as, oh, well, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow kind of attitude to life, wood, touch wood, fingers crossed. We keep ourselves safe. We do the best we can. So the actual pandemic and the whole idea of a new virus out there didn't particularly faze me very much. What did get to me over time, as it did a lot of people, was lockdown. And I said to you earlier on, I said, if another one comes around, fair enough. If somebody thinks it's the right thing to do, that's above my pay grade and not my decision to make. But even for someone like me, who's quite happy staying at home, vegging out, watching TV, having a few beers, playing my PlayStation, it dragged on far too long, and we went in and out of it. Yeah. And we're not really meant to be hermits like that, we're social animals. And as much as my partner and I did get into a good routine, we made sure we were taking care of ourselves. We went out for long walks. We got the dog at the start of lockdown, actually, like a lot of people did. So we're going out lots of walks with him, just trying to do different activities. But you can only do that for so long. It does feel very, it felt like a kind of like a sci-fi movie, wasn't it? Like a dystopian future where everyone's stuck at home because it's a toxic cloud outside, and that's going to get to anyone. So for me, I went through a good number of peaks and troughs. I think the worst was last winter when we were in lockdown. Yes, we were, because Christmas was cancelled. When was it? So that was, when was it?
It wasn't cancelled in my house. I still put my tree up.
I know. So we were due to travel to Scotland to see my family, and of course we had to cancel all that because they shut the border. So that was very depressing and upsetting, and I found myself kind of wallowing for a couple of weeks over Christmas of all times. And then this year during the summer, again working from home. So again, I was working from home. Let me get that right. No, during the summer last year. Yeah. Again, doing the work I do, I like being with people. I like facilitating people. I'm an extrovert, so I get a lot of energy from that performance and getting back to people. So again, I felt good because I was doing the kind of work I was doing, but generally just quite flat. Not as engaged, didn't experience as much highs as I usually would do in my work. I was more kind of just about here and then a bit flat the rest of the time. But overall, good. I personally never got into a really dark place or anything like that. I'd certainly say I drank too much during lockdown. And actually, I've reduced the hell of a lot now, and I've just signed up for Sober October. because you gotta. I know it's crazy. Sometimes you need to do self-maintenance. You know, I'm getting old as well. You know.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah, a tough
the
time.
reason I went like that, I'm like, not a chance
No.
when I do sober October. Oh.
I would never consider it before, but you know, I'm 39 years old. I've got high cholesterol. You know, and you start to, as you get towards 40, you know, you do start to kind of sort of have these thoughts of, well, maybe I should exercise or eat a bit better, and I think that's okay. I think it's the right thing to do for me anyway. We'll see if it sticks.
Yeah. See, no, I'm one of these that I can have a blowout. I can have a few days where I can have a few beers and everything like that. Then have one big blowout, and then obviously I can put myself on a detox where for 2, 3, 4 weeks I don't touch alcohol.
Oh, that's good.
So because obviously I can do it like that, where you know I'm on alcohol or I'm off alcohol, and I drink plenty of water when I'm off.
Yeah.
So Adam's got a water filter, and I love using it. So
Brilliant.
I will admit it does taste nicer than tap water.
Oh no, it definitely does. Yeah. Unless you're lucky or in a good area or in Scotland. But Scotland's water is not as healthy because can't remember why. Anyway, soft water rather than hard water, I think. So it's not as good for your heart. But there you go.
Yeah. So tell me about you and your partner. So how did you meet her? How long have you been together?
We've been together for about 2 years, 2 and a bit. And I actually met her by having my own business. So you know, I was quite fortunate at Short Steps. Hasn't just given us a good lifestyle, but it's also given me a great sort of family, if you include the dog, which we do. In fact, he's in charge. And it goes Thor, Becky, me. I just pay for everything. No, so when I was out networking for my business when I first started, and back then it was just Short Steps coaching, which was almost kind of come full circle back around to now. And we were at one of these networking events, and you know, I'd stood up and given my introduction to myself. You know, they kind of go around the room and everyone introduces themselves. And I think, you know, she reluctantly admitted quite a while later that she really liked the way I talked, liked the way I spoke, and she could tell there was something about me. And I actually knew who she was because I'd sort of semi-stalked her on Facebook because we had a few mutual connections, and she popped up as someone I might know. And I was like, oh, I recognize that name, and I clicked on it, and I really fancied her, so I sent her a friend request. But Becky's the kind of person that she's like, I don't know you, so she just ignored it. So I sat next to her purposefully at this networking event, and we got to chatting, and we hit it off pretty much straight away. So we actually then ran a couple of projects together between her business and my business at the time. So she had a fitness kind of studio where they did like strength training and things like that. So we did a kind of physical and mental health program together. We did 2 of those, and that went really, really well. And then sort of over that time, we kind of got to know each other better, and sort of things progressed. So now, I mean, we live together. So I was on a contract in India with this bank that I mentioned earlier on, and it was January, February into March in 2020.
Yeah.
So right into the start of the pandemic. And in fact, they shut it down, and we flew home at that point because of what was going on. But my partner was actually with me. She came out for the second month, and we'd only been together for about 4 months. And then we spent an entire month together in a hotel room. So that was a real test. And we had such a fantastic time. So when we came back to the UK, it was like, well, that's not good for your mental well-being. You staying alone in your house and me staying alone in my house. So do you want to move in? So again, you know, after only about 5 or 6 months being together, we were like, screw it, let's go for it. And luckily, fingers crossed, as I say, touch wood, it's gone really well so far. We're both very independent, so we take our own space, which I think is really important for relationships. Again, really good for mental well-being because, you know, you can just start to get on each other's nerves, really, can't you? I'm sure. We both work. She's got an office next door. I've got my office here. She does a bit of physio. She does online work. I do the online sort of coaching and that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then we got a dog because I say it started lockdown like a lot of people did. Unlike a lot of people, we've kept our dog. We're never letting him go. And so that kind of ticks a few bucket list items for me as well. Because I'd always wanted a dog, and we never had one, so I never got one. And he's just like a little furry antidepressant. You can't be sad with him around. You just can't. So yeah, that's us.
I will agree with you on pets and mental health, because obviously my cats helped me a lot. Not just obviously when I lost my nana, when my mental health took a dive, but over lockdown as well, my cats were always there for me. So.
Yeah, no, it is a nice thing, you know. And I mean, you know, people give cats a hard time, you know, because they're more independent than dogs. Let's put it that way. But they are, you know, their company, and they're warm company. My godmother, who lives on her own and has had to self-isolate and because she's, you know, quite at risk, you know, throughout the whole thing. She didn't see anyone really apart from the neighbors dropping things off occasionally. And she said her cat was a really important part of her kind of keeping her sanity, really, because again, you've got, it sounds a bit strange to some people, you get somebody to talk to. You know, there's nothing wrong with talking to an animal. It's another creature. It's another being that understands your voice and understands that you're speaking and can respond in whatever way. So, yeah, no, pets are very good for your well-being, and something I'd strongly advocate for people that think they can care for one. You know, that's an important thing to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, you know, I can sit here and talk to you for hours, but I'm going to have to limit our chat today because I am jumping on another podcast right after this one with Ray Cortopassi. I hope I've pronounced the last name right. If not, I'm sure he'll let me know.
He'll definitely correct you. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks very much for having me back. Sorry?
We've kept it short and sweet today.
That's rare for me. I could talk all day long, you know that. But apologies, I was a bit late. I was held up. But that's no problem at all. Always happy to come on and chat to you guys. I love what you guys are doing. I love seeing all the videos come through, and just the persistence with it as well, because it can be very easy for people to kind of lose that motivation and get turned off. But yeah, I really enjoy seeing the videos pop up. I even watch a few of them from time to time. So there you go.
Yeah, well, maybe next time you come on, you can bring your partner on with you, and we can do a little bit of a couple thing with you two, pay back for what you did with me now.
I tried to make that as nice as possible. You said it was fun. Maybe she's a bit camera shy, but yeah, let me talk to her and we'll see.
Yeah, well, let us know, and obviously, again, thanks for coming on. I'll see you soon.
Take care, Gary. All the best. Bye.
Bye.